In the 30th millennium, the Imperium of Man stood at the zenith of its power, a million worlds united under the Emperor's divine vision, guarded by demigod sons who had conquered the stars. But in the shadows of ambition and wounded pride, betrayal festered. The Warmaster Horus, greatest of the Primarchs, had turned from the light. On Isstvan III, the first blood of civil war was about to be spilled. Brother would kill brother. Legions would burn, and into this crucible of treachery and fire, something impossible fell from the sky. No ship, no warning. Just a streak of emerald lightning that tore through reality itself, screaming across the ashen heavens before cratering into the industrial wasteland outside the Coral City. The impact registered on every Auspex array for 300 kilometers, a dimensional anomaly that made tech priests weep binary prayers and space marines reach for their bolters. When the dust settled, there was a figure in the crater, armored head to toe in green and silver, a tattered cloak billowing in toxic winds, motionless as a statue. The metal was wrong. Too smooth, too advanced, covered in circuitry that pulsed with dying light. Warp frost clung to the armor's edges, evaporating into purple mist. Captain Erlin of the World Eater's 12th Company was the first to approach, chainsword idling in his gauntlet, his 19 brothers forming a perimeter. They had been preparing for the drop site massacre, the betrayal that would begin Horus's war. This complication was not in the plan. "Identify yourself," Erlin growled through his Vox grill, his enhanced vision scanning for weapons. The armored figure had none visible, but something about the design, the regal bearing even in unconsciousness, set his warrior instincts screaming. The figure's helmet turned, just slightly. Optical sensors flickered to life, glowing green in the ash-choked twilight. Then the stranger stood. It was a smooth, controlled motion that spoke of powered assistance, but the armor sparked and hissed, internal systems clearly damaged, steam vented from shoulder-mounted ports. The figure reached up with one gauntlet, slower than intended, servos grinding, and removed his mask. The face beneath was human. Scarred tissue ran down the right side, old burns that had healed badly. But the eyes held an intelligence that made even a space marine pause, cold, calculating, utterly without fear, despite being surrounded by transhuman warriors bred for slaughter. "Where," the stranger said in accented Gothic that the Vox translators struggled to parse, "is this?" "You stand on Isstvan III," Erlin replied, chainsword revving once. "A warning. In the domain of Warmaster Horus, you will explain how you bypassed our orbital defenses, or you will die where you stand." The stranger's unscarred eyebrow arched. He looked at the 19 World Eaters, at their ceramite plate and bolt weapons, at the orbital shipyards visible as pinpricks of light against the darkening sky. His gaze swept across the industrial hellscape, taking in the Coral City's towering spires and the gathered legions preparing for deployment. "Horus," the man repeated as if tasting the name. "Warmaster." His eyes narrowed. "This is not Latveria. This is not even Earth." "You speak madness, stranger." Another World Eater, Sergeant Kargos, stepped forward. "There is only one Earth, Terra, heart of the Imperium, throne of the Emperor himself." Something flickered across the stranger's face. Not fear, but recognition. Understanding dawning like a cold sunrise. "I see," he said quietly. Then louder, with absolute authority. "I am Victor von Doom, Lord of Latveria, Master of Science and Sorcery. It appears I have traveled further than intended." He paused, damaged armor whining as internal diagnostics ran. "Take me to your Warmaster. We have much to discuss." Erlin barked a harsh laugh. "You presume to demand audience with—" Doom's gauntlet moved. Energy crackled, not from technology, but from his bare hand as he pulled the glove away. Eldritch symbols flared in the air, green and gold, drawing on forces that made the World Eater's targeting sensors scream with interference. The hair on the back of Erlin's neck rose despite his conditioning against fear. "I do not demand," Doom corrected, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "I inform you of what will happen. Your Warmaster will want to know of the anomaly that breached his defenses. He will want to understand what I represent. And most importantly," those cold eyes swept across them again, "he will want to decide whether I am an asset or a threat before making the mistake of treating me as a prisoner." The magic dissipated, but its message was clear. This was no lost traveler. This was a power. Erlin's hand tightened on his chainsword, but training overrode bloodlust. Unknown variables were to be reported, not eliminated without intelligence. He activated his Vox speed, connecting to the command network. "Captain Erlin to Fleet Command. We have a situation at coordinates 7-7 Alpha. Dimensional anomaly, possible psyker activity, unknown hostile, requesting guidance." The response came within seconds, but not from Fleet Command. The voice that crackled through was deeper, resonant with authority that made even Space Marines stand straighter. "Bring him to the Vengeful Spirit. I will see this Lord of Latveria myself." Ezekiel Abaddon, first captain of the Lunar Wolves, the Warmaster's right hand, Doom smiled, a thin, humorless expression. "Excellent," he said. "Let us not keep your masters waiting." As the World Eaters formed an escort, half honor guard, half firing squad, Doom allowed himself to be led toward the waiting Stormbird transport. His armor's internal displays flickered with diagnostic data. 73% of systems damaged or offline. Power core operating at diminished capacity. But his mind was intact and his will unbroken. He had been pulled from his universe, thrown into what appeared to be some form of galactic empire on the brink of civil war. The aesthetic alone told him volumes. Baroque excess masking brutal efficiency, religious iconography merged with military function, and everywhere the sense of barely controlled violence. He had seen empires before, built one himself. This one was about to tear itself apart, and Victor von Doom did not intend to be a casualty of its collapse. As the Stormbird lifted off, carrying him toward the massive warship in orbit, Doom gazed out at the planet below, at the armies gathering, at the fleets assembling, at the galaxy-spanning war about to begin. In his own universe, he had been trapped, limited by Richards, by the Avengers, by heroes who refused to understand that order required strength. Here, there were no such limitations. Only war, ambition, and gods playing games with mortal pawns. Victor von Doom would not be anyone's pawn. If you crave stories where genius meets grimdark brutality, where sorcerer kings challenge demigod warriors, smash that subscribe button. The Emperor protects those who bear witness to impossible collisions in the 41st millennium's darkest hour. The Vengeful Spirit dominated the orbital space above Isstvan III like a cathedral of war made manifest. 26 kilometers of armored fury, bristling with weapon batteries that could crack continents. It had been the Emperor's own flagship before being gifted to his most favored son. Now it served a new master, and the ship itself seemed to know it. The corridors whispered with strange energies, the walls occasionally bleeding condensation that tech priests hurriedly ignored. Doom noticed everything. The Stormbird docked in Bay Tertius 7, where a full honor guard of Lunar Wolves awaited. 30 warriors in sea-green ceramite, their armor trimmed in black and gold. At their center stood a giant who made even his transhuman brothers look diminutive. Ezekiel Abaddon, first captain, stood nearly 3 meters tall in his Terminator plate. his top knot of black hair spilling over massive pauldrons decorated with Lunar Wolf pack markings and fresh kill tallies. Doom descended the boarding ramp, his damaged armor hissing with each step, and met Abaddon's gaze without hesitation. The first captain's eyes were dark, intelligent, measuring. This was no berserker like the World Eaters. This was a warrior philosopher who had conquered solar systems and broken alien empires. Victor Von Doom, Abaddon's voice rumbled like distant thunder, the anomaly that tore through the immaterium and crashed on the eve of our greatest undertaking. He stepped closer, armored boots clanging on the deck. Tell me why I should not have you executed as a warp spawn sent to disrupt the Warmaster's plans. Because, Doom replied evenly, I am neither spawn nor servant. I am a sovereign lord displaced by forces I am only beginning to understand. And because your Warmaster, if he possesses the intelligence I suspect, will recognize that eliminating unknown variables before extracting their value is the tactic of a frightened child, not a conqueror. Several Lunar Wolves tensed, hands moving toward bolters. No one spoke to Abaddon that way. No one. The first captain stared at Doom for 3 long heartbeats. Then he laughed, a genuine barking sound of surprised amusement. You have courage, stranger. Foolish courage, perhaps, but courage nonetheless. He gestured toward the corridor behind him. Come, the Warmaster will decide your fate personally. As they walked through the vengeful spirit's vast interior, Doom absorbed every detail. The architecture was a bizarre fusion of imperial grandeur and Gothic excess. Vaulted ceilings 30 meters high, decorated with relief carvings of space marine conquests, servo skulls floating through incense-thick air, tech priests performing maintenance rituals that were more prayer than engineering. The ship's machine spirit was real, somehow, a presence in the walls that Doom's mystical senses detected like a living nervous system. But there was something else, a wrongness. The deeper they went, the more Doom felt it, a psychic pressure like standing near a dimensional rift that leaked radiation invisible to mundane senses. His magical training screamed warnings, but he kept his face neutral. Your armor, Abaddon said without turning. It is damaged, yet functions. The tech priests detected energy signatures that do not match any known human or Xenos technology. Where did you acquire it? I built it, Doom replied. In my world, I am scientist and sorcerer both. This armor is the product of both disciplines, technology enhanced by mysticism, mysticism channeled through technology. That made Abaddon pause. He turned genuine curiosity on his scarred features. You are a psyker, then. The Imperium has laws regarding uncontrolled psykers, stranger. Even the Warmaster cannot simply ignore. I am no psyker, Doom interrupted. Your telepaths draw power from, what do you call it, the warp? I draw power from ancient pacts, from knowledge earned through study and sacrifice. The distinction is critical. The warp cares nothing for your distinctions, Abaddon said darkly. But that is a question for minds greater than mine. He resumed walking. We are close now. A word of advice, Lord of Latveria. Horus Lupercal has broken gods and humbled planets. Whatever authority you held in your realm means nothing here. Speak with respect, or your next words will be your last. They arrived at a massive blast door, 20 meters tall, inscribed with the Eye of Terror and the personal heraldry of the Warmaster. 2 Lunar Wolves in Terminator armor stood guard, silent as statues. At Abaddon's approach, the doors groaned open, ancient mechanisms hauling aside tons of adamantium. Beyond was a strategium the size of a cathedral. Hololith projections filled the air. Tactical displays showing fleet positions, troop deployments, planetary data streaming in real time. And at the chamber's center, Studying a display of Isstvan III's surface stood Horus Lupercal. The Warmaster was a vision of transhuman perfection. Nearly 4 meters tall, his armor was a masterwork of artificer craftsmanship, polished ceramite in sea green and gold, trimmed with pelts from beasts of 1,000 worlds. His face was leonine, beautiful in a way that transcended mere handsomeness. It was the face of an archangel, noble and terrible, framed by a mane of shoulder-length hair that caught the light like spun copper. But it was his eyes that truly captured Doom's attention. They were ancient eyes that had seen more than any mortal should witness, and there was something behind them now, a shadow, a presence that whispered of power beyond comprehension. Horus turned from the tactical display and regarded Doom with an expression of calm appraisal. "So," the Warmaster's voice was smooth as silk over steel, "you are the anomaly, the dimensional traveler who arrives on the eve of my rebellion." He smiled, and it was a politician's smile, warm and utterly false. Fate has an interesting sense of timing. Doom met his gaze without flinching. "You speak of rebellion. Against whom?" "Against the Emperor of mankind," Horus said simply, as if discussing the weather. "My father, the tyrant of Terra who abandons his legions to pursue godhood while we bleed and die among the stars. The hypocrite who demands we shun religion while accepting worship. The liar who promised a future of reason, then builds it on faith and lies." The bitterness in those words could have etched steel. This was not mere ambition. This was betrayal born of genuine wounded pride. "I know something of fathers who disappoint," Doom said quietly, "and of empires built on lies." He straightened, armor servos whining. "I am Victor von Doom, monarch of Latveria in my reality. I was conducting dimensional experiments when something, your warp, I presume, tore me from my universe and deposited me here. My armor is damaged, my resources are limited, but my mind and will remain intact." "And what?" Horus circled him slowly, a predator assessing prey. "Do you want, Victor von Doom?" "To survive," Doom replied honestly. "To understand this universe. To repair my armor and find a way home in that order." "Practical," Horus nodded approvingly. "Not begging for mercy or pledging immediate loyalty. Refreshing." He stopped in front of Doom, towering over him. "You claim to be sorcerer and scientist. The former interests me greatly. I have advisors who would very much like to meet you. The latter, the Mechanicum can assess. But first I require proof of your abilities." "What proof would satisfy you?" Horus gestured, and the hololith displays shifted. Isstvan III appeared in 3-dimensional glory, continents, cities, troop concentrations marked in glowing runes. "This world contains elements of 4 legions who remain loyal to my father. In 6 hours, I will order their extermination via viral bombardment. It will be the first act of my war, the blood sacrifice that announces the new era." Doom studied the display, his analytical mind parsing the tactical situation instantly. Millions would die, perhaps billions. And this demigod spoke of it as casually as ordering breakfast. "You will slaughter your own warriors. They are no longer mine. They serve a false ideal." Horus's voice hardened. "But that is not your concern. Here is my test, Sorcerer King. Use your magic. Show me something impossible. Prove that you are more than simply a man in fancy armor." The chamber fell silent. 30 Luna Wolves watched, hands near weapons. Abaddon's jaw tightened. This was the moment. Prove valuable or die. Doom extended his hand, palm upward. He reached deep, drawing on the pacts and knowledge earned through decades of mystic study. In his world, magic was a science. Predictable, controllable, rational. But here, the power that answered his call was different. Hungry, eager. Green fire blossomed above his palm, but it was wrong, tinged with purple, whispering in languages that predated human speech. The flames coalesced into a three-dimensional map of the vengeful spirit itself, perfect in every detail, showing corridors and chambers Doom had never seen. Horus's eyes widened fractionally. Impressive, but let me show you what true power looks like. The Warmaster raised his own hand and reality screamed. The air in the strategium split open like a wound in reality itself. Crimson light poured through, carrying with it the stench of sulfur and something worse. The psychic weight of malevolence so ancient and vast that it made Doom's centuries of mystical study feel like a child's first cantrip. The warp rift was a meter wide, spinning slowly, and through it Doom could see things. Geometries that shouldn't exist, colors that had no name, eyes that watched from impossible angles. Horus held the rift open with casual ease, his face illuminated by its hellish glow. This is the Immaterium, Lord Doom, the Sea of Souls, the realm of infinite possibility and infinite horror. Here, thought becomes reality, emotion has weight, gods are born from belief, and demons feast on mortal suffering. He clenched his fist, and the rift collapsed with a sound like thunder played backwards. This is the power I command now. Power my father denied me. Power that will reshape the galaxy. Doom's mind raced. The implications were staggering. A dimension where psychic energy manifested physically, where consciousness could interact with fundamental reality. In his universe, magic required pacts, rituals, carefully constructed frameworks. Here, the warp was an ocean of raw possibility, unlimited power for those strong enough to swim in it without drowning. But he'd also seen what swam in those depths. Things that made Mephisto look like a minor demon. You traffic with entities from beyond, Doom said carefully. In my world, such pacts always carry prices. What have you promised them, Warmaster? For the first time, something flickered across Horus's perfect features. Not anger, wariness. As if he'd heard the same question from his own thoughts and didn't like the answer. I promised them nothing, Horus replied, but his voice carried a defensive edge. The powers of the warp serve me because they recognize strength. They offer gifts freely to those who would overthrow the false emperor and bring truth to humanity. Doom recognized a man lying to himself. He'd done it often enough. Freely, Doom repeated, letting skepticism color the word. In my experience, gods and demons offer nothing without expecting payment, usually in blood, souls, or sanity. Abaddon stepped forward, his expression thunderous. You dare question the Warmaster's judgment? You who crawled from the warp like... Horus raised a hand, silencing his first captain. No, Ezekiel. He asks fair questions. Questions I have asked myself. The Warmaster turned back to Doom, and for a moment, the mask of divine confidence slipped. What lay beneath was more human and more dangerous. A son betrayed, nursing wounds that festered. The powers I draw upon are dangerous, yes, but they are honest in their hunger. Unlike my father, who wears benevolence like a mask while building a tyranny that will strangle humanity for 10,000 years. You speak of tyranny, Doom said, while planning to murder millions of your own warriors in 6 hours. The temperature in the room dropped. Several lunar wolves raised their bolters. Horus stared at Doom for 5 long seconds. Then he laughed, not the warm politician's laugh from before, but something colder. You are either suicidally bold or genuinely stupid. I haven't decided which. He gestured at the tactical display. Those warriors down there remain loyal to a lie. They would report me to Terra, bring my father's wrath down upon us before we are ready. This is not murder. This is surgery, cutting out the diseased tissue before it poisons the body. And if some of those warriors could be convinced, turn to your cause through reason rather than exterminated. Reason. Horus's expression darkened. I have spent months reasoning, explaining, showing them the Emperor's lies. Some understood, most clung to their conditioning like drowning men to wreckage. He leaned closer, and Doom caught the scent of ozone and something else. Corruption, sweet and cloying. The time for words is past, Lord Doom. Now comes the time of fear. Doom recognized the pattern. A leader who'd convinced himself that mass murder was necessary, who'd surrounded himself with advisors who reinforced rather than challenged. In another life, he might have seen himself in Horus, the brilliant son betrayed by a father, turning to dark powers in pursuit of justified vengeance. But Doom had never been anyone's puppet, not even the demons he'd bargained with over the years. I understand, Doom said, though understanding and approval were different things. You have made your choice, and nothing I say will change it. Very well. I will not pretend to judge you. I, who have burned villages to save nations, who have made pacts with entities that would terrify normal men. We are alike in that regard, Warmaster. We do what must be done. Horus studied him, genuine curiosity replacing suspicion. You speak like a king. Not a general or a warlord, but a true sovereign. How large was your domain? A single nation, Doom admitted. Latveria, small by your standards, 3 million souls. But it was mine absolutely. Every citizen fed, housed, protected. Crime eliminated, disease conquered, perfection achieved through my rule. 3 million. Horus smiled sadly. I command legions of 100,000 Astartes each, fleet elements numbering in the thousands, forge worlds that can build titans, entire sectors of space bow to my name. He turned back to the tactical display. And yet, I feel I have less control than you did over your 3 million. Power scales poorly, Lord Doom. The more you grasp, the more slips through your fingers. It was a moment of vulnerability, genuine and unexpected. Doom filed it away. This demigod had doubts, fears that his advisors likely dismissed. That was leverage. Perhaps, Doom said carefully, that is because you are not alone in your grasp. You mentioned advisors, the powers of the warp who offer gifts. Gods need worshippers, Warmaster. Ask yourself, are you wielding them, or are they wielding you? Abaddon's hand went to his sword. That is enough. You overstep. He speaks truth. A new voice cut through the chamber, sharp and cold as a scalpel. The shadows in the corner of the strategium moved wrong, and from them stepped a figure in power armor of midnight blue and bronze. His helmet was a work of art and nightmare, stylized into a leering demon's face, eye lenses glowing with witchfire. Scrolls of parchment covered every surface of his armor, inscribed with text in languages that hurt to read. Erebus, Horus said, and there was something in his voice, not quite warmth, not quite trust. I wondered when you would make your presence known. First chaplain of the word bearers, the newcomer said, inclining his horned helmet toward Doom. And yes, stranger, the gods do require worship, but they also reward the faithful beyond mortal comprehension. He circled Doom slowly. I sense power in you. Raw, untutored power that reeks of the warp, yet carries none of Chaos's blessings. How is this possible? Chaos? Doom seized on the word. You name these entities Chaos. That is concerning. Erebus laughed, a sound like glass breaking. Concerning? It is glorious. Chaos is truth, the fundamental reality beneath the Emperor's lies, the warp given form and purpose. There are 4 great powers, stranger, and they have watched your arrival with great interest. Doom felt it then. Presences vast beyond comprehension, turning their attention toward him like spotlights swiveling to illuminate an insect. His magical wards flared instinctively, barely holding back the psychic pressure. "They see you," Erebus whispered. "Victor von Doom, Lord of Nothing, King of Nowhere. They see your ambition, your intelligence, your absolute certainty in your own supremacy." He stepped closer. "They could make you a key sorcerer. They could give you power to reshape reality itself. All they ask is acknowledgement, worship, service." Doom's scarred face remained impassive, but his mind worked furiously. This was the trap. The same trap Horus had fallen into, dressed in flattery and promises. These Chaos Gods, because that's clearly what they were, wanted to add him to their collection of champions. Victor von Doom bowed to no one. Not in his universe, not here. "I acknowledge no gods," Doom said flatly. "In my world, I bargained with demons as equals, traded knowledge and service on terms I dictated. I will not become a puppet for entities, no matter how powerful, who hide behind titles like Chaos Gods, while demanding worship like insecure children." The temperature plummeted. Frost formed on the metal surfaces. Erebus's armor crackled with warp energy, runes glowing angry red. "You dare?" "Enough," Horus commanded, and despite everything, both Erebus and Doom fell silent. The Warmaster stepped between them. "Lord Doom speaks from ignorance, Erebus. He does not yet understand the magnitude of what the dark gods offer. And you," he turned to Doom, "walk a dangerous path. Refusing the gifts of chaos is unwise." "Then I am unwise, Moai." Doom replied, "But I am also not a fool. I see what is happening here, Warmaster. You think you are leading a rebellion, but you are being guided, manipulated. These dark gods care nothing for your grievances against your father. They want to use you to tear down his Imperium so they can feast on the resulting carnage." The Strategium went absolutely silent. Horus's expression went cold as ceramite. For 3 heartbeats, Doom thought he'd finally overstepped, that the Warmaster would simply nod, and Abaddon would end him with a single stroke of that massive power sword. The Luna Wolves had their weapons trained on him now. 30 bolters aimed at center mass, and even Doom's armor, damaged as it was, couldn't withstand that much firepower. But Horus didn't give the order. Instead, he raised one perfect hand, and the temperature normalized. The psychic pressure eased. When he spoke, his voice was controlled, almost curious. "You believe I am being manipulated. I know you are." Doom replied, committing to the path he'd chosen. "I have dealt with demonic entities for decades. They always follow the same pattern: offer power, whisper justifications, make the corruption feel like liberation. By the time you realize you've lost control, you're so deep in their web that extraction is impossible." "And yet," Erebus interjected, his voice dripping with false courtesy, "you admit to bargaining with demons yourself. How is that different from what the Warmaster does?" "Because I never deluded myself about what they were." Doom turned to face the word-bearer. "I went into every pact knowing it was a transaction between adversaries, not a gift from benevolent powers. I maintained leverage. I never surrendered my will." He gestured at the chamber around them. "You speak of dark gods as if they are saviors. They are predators, and you are prey that has convinced itself it's a hunter." Abaddon's hand tightened on his sword hilt. "You insult the Warmaster's wisdom." "No," Horus said quietly. "He challenges it. There is a difference." The Warmaster moved to the viewport, staring out at the stars beyond. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of genuine introspection. "Do you know what my father told me, Lord Doom? He said that I was his greatest creation, his finest son, the one who would lead his legions to ultimate victory while he pursued his great work on Terra." "And then he left," Doom said, understanding dawning. "And then he left," Horus repeated bitterly. "No explanation, no farewell, just orders to continue the crusade while he vanished into his laboratories, too busy for the sons who bled across the galaxy in his name. I sent messages, questions about his work, requests for guidance. Do you know how many?" he answered. "None." "3, Horus corrected. 3 responses in 2 years. Bureaucratic acknowledgements written by his scribes, not even bearing his personal seal." The Warmaster's fists clenched. "I am his son. I deserve more than dismissal." Doom saw it clearly now, the wound that chaos had infected. Not ambition or hatred, but abandonment. The brilliant child desperate for paternal approval, turning to darker mentors when that approval was denied. It was almost pitiable. Almost. "So you make common cause with entities that will devour humanity because your father wounded your pride," Doom said. "That is the action of a petulant boy, not a sovereign lord." The temperature plummeted again. Horus spun, and for the first time Doom saw genuine rage on that perfect face. "You know nothing of—" "I know everything of it," Doom interrupted, his own anger rising. "Do you think you are the first brilliant son betrayed by his father? Mine was a Romani witch who died calling my name, killed by Latverian nobles while I was away studying forbidden texts. I returned to find her executed, her body left to rot as a warning to others." His voice dropped to something colder than Horus's fury. "I killed every noble responsible, burned their estates, erased their bloodlines from history. Then I conquered Latveria and remade it in my image, perfection born from righteous vengeance." The chamber was silent. Even Erebus seemed taken aback. "But," Doom continued, "I never pretended my vengeance was noble. I never dressed my rage in the clothing of liberation or truth. I owned my darkness, Warmaster. Can you say the same?" Horus stared at him. The rage was still there, but something else had joined it. Recognition? Understanding. For a long moment, the two men, one transhuman demigod, one mortal genius, regarded each other across the gulf of their respective hells. "You are dangerous," Horus finally said. "Not because of your power. That is formidable but limited. Dangerous because you speak truths I have avoided examining too closely." He turned to Erebus. "Leave us. You as well, Ezekiel. I would speak with Lord Doom alone." Erebus's helmet turned sharply. "Warmaster, I must protest." "You must do nothing except obey." Horus's voice carried the weight of absolute command. "This is not a request, First Chaplain. Leave. Now." For a moment, Doom thought Erebus might refuse. The word-bearer radiated barely contained fury, his armor crackling with warp energy. But whatever hold chaos had on him, it wasn't strong enough yet to override his conditioning of obedience to superior authority. "As you command," Erebus said, each word forced through clenched teeth. He stalked toward the exit, pausing beside Doom just long enough to whisper, "The gods are patient, sorcerer. They will have you eventually. Everyone breaks." "I am not everyone," Doom replied. Erebus left, followed by Abaddon and the Luna Wolves. The massive blast doors sealed with a hydraulic hiss, leaving Doom alone with the Warmaster of Chaos. Horus moved to a side table where a crystal decanter sat filled with amber liquid. He poured 2 glasses with hands that could crush stone, the gesture oddly domestic coming from a 4-meter transhuman warrior. He offered one to Doom. "Amasek," Horus said, "from Terra, age 300 years. My father gave it to me when I was named Warmaster. I have been saving it for a special occasion." He raised his glass. "To honest monsters." Doom accepted the glass, studying the Warmaster carefully. This was either genuine or the most sophisticated manipulation he'd encountered. He took a careful sip. The liquid burned pleasantly, complex and rich. "To honest monsters," he agreed. They drank in silence for a moment. Then Horus spoke, and his voice was tired. "Human. Tell me honestly, Sorcerer King, am I damned?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Doom considered lying, considered offering false comfort or strategic manipulation. But he'd committed to honesty, and Horus would see through anything less. "Yes," Doom said simply. "The moment you opened yourself to these chaos gods, you sealed your fate. They have hooks in your soul now, Warmaster. Even if you tried to withdraw, they would not release you. You will win battles, perhaps even win this war. But in the end, you will serve their purposes, not your own." Horus closed his eyes. "I know," he whispered. "Part of me has always known. Erebus speaks of glorious ascension, of godhood within the warp. But I see what it costs. I see my brothers changing. Fulgrim grows more obsessed with perfection until it twists into obscenity. Angron drowns in rage he can no longer control. Magnus..." He trailed off. "Magnus tried to warn me, to warn all of us. The Emperor broke him for it." "Then why continue?" Doom demanded. "If you know you're being used." "Because there is no going back." Horus turned to face him, and his eyes were ancient and terrible. "I have already committed the unforgivable. My father will never forgive this betrayal. The Imperium will hunt me across the galaxy until one of us is destroyed. So I must win. I must burn Terra, cast down the Emperor, and reshape the Imperium into something better. It is the only path that does not end in my complete annihilation." Doom understood. Horus was trapped between his father's wrath and Chaos's corruption, forced to continue a path that would damn him because the alternative was absolute destruction. It was a strategic nightmare with no good options. "You could still..." "Do not say I could surrender." Horus's voice hardened. "I am Horus Lupercal, Warmaster of the Imperium, conqueror of 1,000 worlds. I do not beg for mercy from a father who abandoned me. I will see this through to its conclusion, whatever that may be." He finished his drink in one swallow. "Now, Lord Doom, I have answered your questions with dangerous honesty. You will answer mine. What do you want from me?" "Resources," Doom said immediately. "Access to your tech priests to repair my armor. Information about this universe, its physical laws, political structures, the nature of the warp. And time to study before deciding my next move." "And in exchange?" "Nothing," Doom said. "I make no pledges to your cause. I will not fight in your war or lend my knowledge to your rebellion. But neither will I work against you, provided you do not attempt to force my service or hand me over to your chaos gods as a prize." Horus laughed, genuine amusement breaking through the darkness. "You truly fear no one, do you? Standing in my flagship surrounded by my legions, and you dictate terms as if you held all the leverage." "I hold the leverage of unpredictability," Doom replied. "You cannot be certain what I might do if cornered. Better to let me operate freely under observation than risk whatever chaos I might cause if desperate." "Chaos?" Horus repeated, tasting the irony. "Very well, Victor von Doom. You will have your resources. I will assign you quarters and grant access to one of our forge ships, the Absolute Truth, currently in orbit. The mechanicum there are flexible in their interpretations of holy doctrine. They will help you repair your armor. And the price? Your company, Horus said. From time to time, I will summon you for conversation. You are the first person in months who has spoken to me without agenda or worship. It is refreshing, perhaps even necessary. He moved toward the Strategium's exit. Come, I will show you to your quarters. And Lord Doom, a word of advice. Stay away from Erebus. The first chaplain does not forgive slights easily, and the dark gods listen to his prayers. I will survive, Doom said confidently. As they walked through the corridors of the vengeful spirit, Doom reflected on the bizarre situation. He had arrived expecting immediate conflict, but instead found himself in a complex web of politics, theology, and impending civil war. Horus was simultaneously his captor and something approaching an ally. The Chaos gods wanted him as a prize, and somewhere out there an emperor ruled 1,000,000 worlds with authority that made even Horus tremble. Victor von Doom had conquered a nation. Here, he would need to learn to survive an empire at war with itself. The game had begun, and Doom never lost. The quarters Horus assigned Doom were paradoxically austere, a 20-meter chamber aboard a warship that could level cities, furnished with a simple cot, a work desk of dark metal, and a cogitator terminal that hummed with barely understood technologies. A single viewport showed the orbital dance of Isstvan 3 below, where millions remained blissfully unaware that in 4 hours their world would become a crematorium. Doom removed his helmet and set it on the desk, running diagnostics through his armor's failing systems. The HUD flickered, displaying critical damage reports in languages that shouldn't exist. 71% functionality, dropping slowly as microfractures in the power core expanded. Without repairs, he had perhaps 3 days before the armor became an ornate coffin. A chime at the door interrupted his analysis. "Enter," Doom commanded, slipping the helmet back on. In hostile territory, showing vulnerability was suicide. The door hissed open, revealing not a warrior but a robed figure, barely taller than an adolescent. The Mechanicum tech priest shuffled forward on augmetic legs that clicked against the deck plating. Half his face was human, pale, young, with bright eyes that suggested fierce intelligence. The other half was a mass of brass machinery, optical sensors whirring and clicking as they focused on Doom. A mechadendrite, a mechanical tentacle, emerged from his back, terminating in a sensor array that swept Doom's armor with invisible beams. "Magos ur tokfal," the tech priest's voice emerged from a Vox grill, binary clicks and whirs punctuating Gothic speech. "I have been assigned to assist with your technological requirements." The pause before assist carried worlds of meaning. This was not a willing volunteer. "You disagree with the assignment," Doom observed. "I disagree with anomalies," Fell replied, circling Doom with the curiosity of a scavenger examining a corpse. "Your armor violates 17 fundamental principles of the Omnissiah's Holy Standard Template Construct Guidelines. The power distribution network alone is heretical in its efficiency, and yet," his human eye widened, "it functions. By rights, you should be dead. The energy signature should have torn you apart during warp transit." "In my world," Doom said, "I built this armor from principles your Omnissiah has never dreamed. Science and sorcery unified through understanding rather than superstition." Fell's mechadendrite recoiled as if stung. "Sorcery. You admit to corrupting the machine with warp taint. This is precisely why—" "Stop," Doom interrupted. "You serve Horus now, yes? The Warmaster who draws power from the very warp you claim to fear? Your moral high ground is built on hypocrisy, Magos. Either help me repair this armor, or leave and send someone less conflicted." The tech priest stood frozen, a dozen internal systems probably calculating risk versus reward. Finally, he spoke, and his voice carried bitter resignation. "You are correct. The Warmaster's path has forced adaptations in our understanding of acceptable technology. Very well, I will assist, but I make no promises regarding the armor's final functionality. Your design philosophy is alien to everything I have spent a century learning." "Then you will learn new things today," Doom said. "Remove your dogma, Magos. Approach this as a scientist, not a priest, and perhaps we will both benefit." Over the next 3 hours, Doom and Fel worked in an uneasy alliance. The Magos brought diagnostic equipment from the Absolute Truth, machines that looked like torture devices crossed with medical scanners, humming with barely contained power. Doom opened his armor systems, revealing the intricate fusion of circuits and mystical sigils that powered it, and watched Fel's reaction shift from horror to fascination. "This shouldn't work," Fel muttered, his mechadendrite tracing a power conduit that looped through a configuration that violated Euclidean geometry. "The energy flow contradicts basic thermodynamic principles. Unless—" He paused, calculations running behind his human eye. "Unless the sigils are not decorative, Sim. They are functional, channeling something that exists outside standard physics." "Precisely," Doom said. "In my universe, magic is simply science that operates on principles beyond conventional understanding. These runes draw power from dimensional pockets, storing it in configurations that bypass material limitations. Your mechanicum worships technology as divine. I simply build the divine directly into the machine." "Heresy," Fel whispered, but there was awe in his voice now. "Beautiful, functional heresy." They worked in silence for a time, Fel fabricating replacement components from materials scavenged throughout the vengeful spirit. The Magos proved remarkably adaptable once his religious conditioning was bypassed. His centuries of experience with alien tech and Xenos machinery translated surprisingly well to understanding Doom's armor. Then the ship shuddered. It was subtle, a vibration that ran through the deck plating like a low-frequency hum. But Doom had spent enough time on spacecraft to know what it meant. Weapons discharge. Massive weapons discharge. "It has begun," Fel said quietly. "The virus bombing of Isstvan 3. Doom moved to the viewport. In orbit above the planet, the vengeful spirit and its escort fleet had opened their launch bays. Torpedoes streaked toward the surface, hundreds of them, each carrying payloads that would spread biological death across continents. He watched them descend like falling stars, beautiful and terrible. 12 billion humans live on that world, Fel said, his mechanical eye tracking the torpedoes with inhuman precision. 87% will be dead within the hour. The loyalist Astartes on the surface, approximately 30,000, will survive the initial bombardment. Then the Warmaster will send landing forces to eliminate them personally. "And you participate in this," Doom said. "I follow my orders," Fel replied, but his human hand trembled slightly. "The Warmaster has promised us freedom from Mars's dogmatic restrictions, access to technologies the Fabricator General has kept locked away for millennia. In exchange for this genocide, we receive knowledge. It is an acceptable trade." "You lie to yourself," Doom observed. "I hear it in your voice. You know this is wrong, but you have convinced yourself it is necessary. What would you have me do?" Fel turned, and for the first time, genuine emotion cracked through his mechanical augmentations. "Refuse. Be executed as a traitor. The decision was made before I arrived. My participation changes nothing except my own survival." "A coward's rationalization," Doom said flatly. "But a human one. I will not judge you, Magos. I have committed worse atrocities in service of order." Below, the first virus bomb struck. Even from orbit, Doom could see the bloom of gray-green clouds spreading across the planet's surface, rolling over cities and fortifications like a toxic tide. In his mind's eye, he saw what was happening: lungs dissolving, blood boiling from within, flesh rotting off bones in seconds. 12 billion deaths delivered with mechanical efficiency. And he stood here, doing nothing to stop it. Could he have? The question gnawed at him. His magic was powerful but unfocused in this universe, amplified by the warp but unstable. His armor was damaged. He was alone on a hostile warship surrounded by transhuman killers. Any attempt at intervention would result in his immediate death and change nothing about the outcome. Strategic paralysis. The most frustrating form of impotence. Knowing action was futile, but being unable to accept inaction. The Imperium will call this the greatest atrocity in human history, Fell said quietly, his human eye still fixed on the dying world. They will paint the Warmaster as a monster, but they will not mention that the Emperor himself has destroyed worlds, that he has ordered the extinction of entire species, that his great crusade is built on mountains of alien corpses. The only difference between him and Horus is who writes the history. There is always a difference between necessary evil and gratuitous slaughter, Doom replied. But you are right about one thing. History is written by victors. If Horus wins, this will be reframed as a tragic but necessary purge. If he loses, it will be remembered as the day the greatest of men fell to darkness. Do you believe he will win? Doom considered the question seriously. No. Horus is brilliant, charismatic, and commands vast resources, but he fights with one hand tied behind his back, the hand held by chaos gods who care nothing for his actual victory. They want destruction, not conquest. As long as Horus serves that purpose, they will empower him. But the moment he threatens to actually win and establish order, they will abandon him to failure. You truly believe the dark gods work against their own champion? I know they do, Doom said, because gods, true gods, do not care about mortals except as entertainment. They are fundamentally alien to human concerns. Horus thinks he has made a bargain. In truth, he has become a character in someone else's story, and the ending is already written. Fell processed this in silence. Finally, he spoke, binary chatter underlying his words. If you believe the Warmaster is doomed, why not flee? Steal a ship, escape to the loyalist forces, offer them your knowledge in exchange for protection? Because I do not serve the Imperium either, Doom replied. From what I have learned, the Emperor's regime is a theocratic nightmare that crushes individuality in service of unity. Horus's rebellion is doomed, but the Imperium is rotten. I will serve neither. Then what will you do? Survive. See, Doom said simply. Learn, adapt. And when opportunity presents itself, carve out my own space in this galaxy's power structure. I am Victor Von Doom. I have toppled governments and bargained with demons. This is simply a larger chessboard. Below, Isstvan III burned. The virus clouds had spread across 70% of the planet's surface now, a shroud of death that turned a living world into a mausoleum. Doom watched without flinching, forcing himself to witness the consequences of strategic inaction. Your armor will require 6 more hours of work, Fell said, returning to the practical. The power core's microfractures are more extensive than initially diagnosed, but I believe I can stabilize it using a modified plasma coil from our fusion reactors. The result will be unorthodox, but functional. Do it, Doom commanded. And Magos, a question. These chaos gods that Erebus serves so fervently, What do you know of their true nature? Fell's mechadendrite curled defensively. Very little. The Mechanicum has traditionally avoided theological questions, focusing on the machine rather than the immaterial. But since our alliance with the Warmaster, certain information has become available. There are 4 primary entities: Khorne, god of war and bloodshed; Nurgle, god of decay and despair; Tzeentch, god of change and sorcery; Slaanesh, god of excess and sensation. Each name resonated in Doom's mystical senses, carrying weight beyond mere words. These were not demons like those he'd bargained with. Mephisto and his ilk were powerful but ultimately finite. These chaos gods were something else entirely. Conceptual entities, perhaps. Sentient ideas given form by collective belief. "And they all want me," Doom said. "Yes," Fell confirmed. "Erebus has already reported your presence to his masters in the Word-Bearers. They, in turn, have communed with the Dark Gods. You are valuable. A sorcerer-scientist from beyond reality itself, carrying knowledge of magics they have never tasted. Every power in the warp wants to claim you for their own." "Then they will be disappointed," Doom said coldly. "I have resisted demonic temptation for decades. I will not falter now simply because the demons wear grander titles." A notification chimed on the cogitator terminal. Fell moved to read it, his optical sensors processing the data stream. "A summons. The Warmaster requests your presence in the Strategium. The bombardment is complete. Landing operations are about to begin." Doom sealed his helmet back into place. His armor was still damaged, but Fell's emergency repairs had brought it to 83% functionality. Enough to survive. Enough to fight, if necessary. "Lead the way, Magos." As they walked through the Vengeful Spirit's corridors, Doom reflected on the game he was playing. Every faction wanted something from him. Horus wanted honest counsel. Erebus wanted a convert to chaos. The Mechanicum wanted his technological secrets. And he wanted only to survive long enough to understand this universe and find a path to power within it. The game was growing more complex, but complexity favored the intelligent. And Victor Von Doom was nothing if not intelligent. The Strategium had transformed into a war room that pulsed with barely controlled violence. Hololith displays showed the surface of Isstvan III in real time. A dead world now, its atmosphere thick with viral particles that reduced flesh to slurry. But in the ruins of the Coral City, thermal signatures blazed like defiant stars. The loyalist Astartes had survived, protected by their sealed armor, and they were fortifying positions with the desperate efficiency of warriors who knew death was coming. Horus stood at the chamber center, surrounded by his commanders. Abaddon was there, his Terminator armor scarred from 1,000 battles. Luke Sadir, captain of the 13th Company, his face twisted with barely suppressed bloodlust. Sergar Targos, the Lodge Master whose political manipulations had brought half the Lunar Wolves to Horus's cause. And Erebus, the Word-Bearer, standing slightly apart, his demon-helmed head tilted as if listening to voices only he could hear. "Lord Doom," Horus said without turning, his attention fixed on the tactical display. "I summoned you because I want an outside perspective. You have no emotional investment in these warriors, no brotherhood to cloud your judgment. Look at this battlefield and tell me, how would you eliminate 30,000 entrenched Astartes with minimal losses to my own forces?" Doom approached the hololith, studying the terrain. The Loyalists had withdrawn to the Coral City's remains, a maze of collapsed buildings and underground bunkers that would turn any assault into a meat grinder. The virus had done its work on the civilian population, but the Astartes were another matter entirely. Genetically enhanced super soldiers, each worth 100 normal men, fighting for their lives with nothing left to lose. You cannot, Doom said flatly, not without acceptable losses. Those warriors down there know they have been betrayed. They will fight with the fury of the damned because they have nothing left to lose. Any ground assault will cost you thousands of your own. Abaddon's eyes narrowed. We are Luna Wolves. We have broken stronger fortifications than... You are Luna Wolves fighting other Luna Wolves, Doom interrupted. Warriors trained in the same tactics, by the same instructors who know every trick you might employ. This is not a battle, it is fratricide, and it will bleed you white if approached with conventional methods. Then what do you suggest? Horus asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Doom manipulated the hololith controls, zooming in on the city's subterranean infrastructure. The virus killed the population but left the infrastructure largely intact. These water systems, sewage tunnels, maintenance corridors, they connect throughout the city. Fill them with poison gas, something their armor's filtration cannot handle, or collapse the tunnels themselves, bury them alive, or... He paused, considering darker options. Your chaos gods grant demonic servants, yes? Send them through the immaterial realm, bypassing physical defenses entirely. The strategium fell silent. Even Erebus seemed taken aback. You suggest we sicken them like vermin, Abaddon said, disgust coloring his voice. Luna Wolves do not hide from honorable combat. Honor is a luxury you surrendered when you bombed your own brothers from orbit, Doom replied coldly. If you want efficiency over sentiment, these are your options. If you want a glorious last stand that costs you thousands of irreplaceable Astartes, by all means charge their fortifications with banners flying. Horus stared at the display, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, his voice was measured. Your suggestions are practical, efficient, and completely devoid of the warrior's honor that defines the legiones Astartes. We are not techno-barbarians who poisoned wells and burned cities. We are the Emperor's angels of death, and even in rebellion, we maintain certain standards. Then you will die maintaining those standards, Doom said. Standards are beautiful things until they become shackles. Your father understood this. He built the Imperium through pragmatism, not honor. Why do you think he created you as weapons rather than statesmen? Because, Erebus interjected smoothly, the Emperor is a hypocrite who demands honor from his servants while practicing ruthless pragmatism himself. This is precisely the double standard that drove the Warmaster to rebellion. The word-bearer moved closer to the hololith, but Lord Doom's suggestions have merit. The Dark Gods would gladly lend us diamond packs to... No, Horus said firmly. Not yet. Demons are unpredictable. I will not unleash them without absolute necessity. He turned to his commanders. We will assault the Coral City directly. Abaddon, you will lead the Justarin Terminators in the first wave. Sedirai, your assault squads will secure the underground approaches. I want those loyalists broken within 6 hours. It will cost us, Abaddon warned. Everything costs, Horus replied. But some prices buy us legitimacy. If we win this war through poison and demons, what have we become? Just another Xenos horror for the Imperium to exterminate. We must prove we are still Astartes, still worthy of ruling humanity. That means we bleed alongside our brothers, even as we kill them. Doom recognized the calculus. Horus needed this to be a war, not an extermination. He needed to maintain the fiction that he was saving the Imperium, not destroying it. Efficient butchery would undermine the narrative he was building. You value story over strategy, Doom observed. That is a mistake that will haunt you. Perhaps, Horus acknowledged. But it is my mistake to make. You may observe the assault from the Vengeful Spirit's command deck, Lord Doom. Consider it an education in how Astartes wage war." Doom inclined his head, recognizing the dismissal. As he turned to leave, Erebus's voice stopped him. "A moment, Lord Doom. I would speak with you, privately." The temperature dropped fractionally. Horus glanced between them, then nodded. "Make it brief first, Chaplain. We have a war to fight." The word-bearer led Doom to an adjacent chamber, a meditation cell filled with incense that carried notes of sulfur and something sweeter, almost floral. Warp-touched candles burned with flames that flickered purple and green. The walls were covered in scripture written in languages that predated human civilization, texts that hurt to look at too directly. "You are intelligent," Erebus said once the door sealed behind them. "Too intelligent to truly believe you can resist the dark gods forever. You have felt their attention. You know what they offer." "I know what they claim to offer," Doom corrected. "Power, knowledge, dominion over reality itself. But I also know the price, my will, my identity, my very soul subsumed into their eternal games. I have dealt with demons before, First Chaplain. I know how this ends. Do you?" Erebus removed his helmet, revealing a face that was handsome in an ascetic way. Sharp cheekbones, deep-set eyes that glowed faintly with warp light, ritual scarification across his forehead. "The demons of your universe are finite things, limited. The chaos gods are infinite, eternal, woven into the very fabric of reality itself. They do not simply offer power, they offer apotheosis, transcendence beyond mortal limitation, at the cost of becoming their puppet." "No," Erebus smiled, and it was the smile of a true believer. "At the cost of becoming part of something greater than yourself. You are a king of a dead nation, Doom. Your Latveria does not exist here. Your achievements mean nothing in this universe. You are less than a footnote, a dimensional anomaly that will be forgotten as soon as you die." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to something intimate. "But the dark gods can give you everything you lost: empire, purpose, the power to reshape reality according to your will. And all I must do is kneel," Doom said. "Worship, serve." "Yes," Erebus said simply. "Is that truly so terrible? You are already alone in a hostile universe tour. The Imperium would dissect you given the chance. The Loyalists would execute you as a warp spawn. Horus tolerates you but does not truly trust you. Where else can you turn?" It was a good argument, logical, appealing to Doom's isolation and offering exactly what his ego craved: recognition, power, purpose. The word-bearer had clearly studied psychological manipulation, knew how to identify and exploit vulnerabilities. But Victor von Doom had not conquered Latveria by surrendering to temptation. "I will tell you a story," Doom said. "In my universe, there is an entity called Mephisto, a demon lord who rules a hell dimension and trades in souls. He approached me once, offering unlimited power in exchange for my mother's soul, which he held captive to the torment I could have ended with a single word of agreement." "And you refused," Erebus guessed. "I refused," Doom confirmed, "because the moment I accepted his terms, I would have become his creature. So instead, I spent decades studying dark magic, learning forbidden rituals, accumulating enough power to invade his realm and take my mother's soul by force. It took years. It cost me allies, resources, pieces of my own humanity. But when I finally stood in Mephisto's throne room, it was as his equal, not his servant." Erebus's expression darkened. "You cannot force the chaos gods, sorcerer. They are not finite demons you can bargain with or conquer. They are fundamental aspects of reality itself: war, decay, change, and excess. These concepts exist whether you acknowledge them or not." Then I will learn to manipulate those concepts without serving their personifications, Doom replied. In my universe, magic is science, energy that can be channeled, directed, controlled through understanding rather than superstition. Your warp is more chaotic, yes, but chaos is simply a pattern too complex for conventional analysis. Give me time, resources, and I will find a way to draw on its power without kneeling to its gods. The word-bearer laughed. Not mockery, but genuine amusement mixed with something darker. You truly believe that? Your ego is magnificent, Lord Doom. It will also be your destruction. But I confess I am curious to see how long you last. The dark gods are patient. They have eternity to break you. They will wait eternity then, Doom said, because I will never break. We shall see. Erebus replaced his helmet, the demonic visage sealing back into place. A final warning, sorcerer. The Warmaster protects you now, but his protection is finite. There are others aboard this ship who resent your presence, who see you as a threat to their influence. Accidents happen in war. Ammunition misfires. Bulkheads seal at inopportune moments. You would be wise to watch your back. Is that a threat? Merely an observation, Erebus said. The dark gods want you intact, but they are not the only powers aboard the vengeful spirit. Pray you remain useful to the Warmaster, Lord Doom. It is the only thing keeping you alive. The word-bearer left, his armored footfalls echoing in the corridor beyond. Doom stood alone in the meditation chamber, surrounded by profane scripture and warp-touched flames. Erebus was right about one thing. He was isolated, vulnerable, dependent on Horus's continued tolerance for survival. Every faction saw him as either a prize to claim or a threat to eliminate. But vulnerability could be weaponized. Isolation meant he owed no loyalties, and being underestimated was the greatest advantage a strategic mind could possess. He activated his armor's internal cogitator, accessing the data he'd been covertly recording since arriving on the Vengeful Spirit. Ship layouts, command protocols, legion disposition, warp signatures associated with chaos corruption. Information was power, and Doom hoarded information like a dragon hoarded gold. The assault on Isstvan 3 would begin in 2 hours. Doom would observe, learn how these Astartes fought, study their tactics and limitations, knowledge that might prove useful when, not if, he needed to fight or flee. Because Victor von Doom did not trust in anyone's protection, he trusted in preparation, intelligence, and the absolute certainty that he would survive whatever this universe threw at him. The Chaos Gods wanted him. The Imperium would destroy him. Horus tolerated him. None of them understood that Dr. Doom was not a piece on their board. He was a player in his own right, and the game was just beginning. The assault on Isstvan 3 was butchery elevated to an art form. From the Vengeful Spirit's command deck, Doom watched through piked feeds and augur arrays as 3 legions descended upon the Coral City like the wrath of angry gods. Thunderhawks screamed through the toxic atmosphere, drop pods slammed into ruins with the force of orbital strikes, and teleportation flares marked the arrival of Terminator squads directly into the heart of Loyalist positions. The scale was staggering. Thousands of Astartes, each a walking arsenal, converging on 30,000 brothers who had chosen the wrong side of history. The Loyalists fought like cornered wolves. Captain Garrow of the Death Guard held the western approaches with 700 warriors, his line refusing to break despite 3 waves of World Eaters smashing against his positions. Doom watched a peaked feed showing Garrow, massive in his Baroque plate armor, personally decapitating a berserker with a single stroke of his power sword, then turning to rally his men with words the audio couldn't capture, but whose effect was immediate. The Death Guard line stiffened, bolters roaring, and the World Eaters fell back, leaving dozens of their dead in the rubble. "Admirable," Horus murmured from beside Doom. The Warmaster had joined him on the command deck, apparently preferring observation to direct participation in this particular slaughter. Garrow was always one of Mortarion's finest, loyal to a fault. He will not surrender. "Then he will die," Doom said pragmatically. "Yes," Horus agreed, and there was genuine regret in his voice. "But he will die a hero to those who survive to remember him." That is the tragedy of civil war. Both sides create martyrs. On another display, Captain Loken of the Lunar Wolves led a desperate counterattack against Abaddon's Justarin. The two forces met in the ruins of a cathedral, and for 3 minutes the combat was too chaotic for the piked feeds to properly resolve. Just a blur of ceramite, energy fields, and blood. When the dust settled, Loken's force had been cut to 1/3 of its original strength, but Abaddon's Terminators had been forced to withdraw, several bearing damage that would have killed normal Astartes. "Loken," Horus said softly. "I named him the 10th Captain, chose him personally from the ranks. He was like a son to me." The Warmaster's jaw tightened. "Now I must kill him to prove my commitment to a path I increasingly question." Doom glanced at the demigod beside him. "You could stop this. Order withdrawal. Sue for peace before—" "There is no peace," Horus interrupted. "My father will never forgive this. I murdered billions on Isstvan III. I have allied with powers he spent centuries trying to suppress. Even if I begged forgiveness, he would destroy me as an example. The only path forward is through Terra itself." He turned away from the displays. "But that does not mean I must enjoy the journey." For 6 hours the battle raged. Doom watched with clinical detachment, analyzing tactics and capabilities. The Astartes were extraordinary, faster than human reflexes should allow, strong enough to tear through ceramite with bare hands, disciplined enough to maintain formation under artillery bombardment that would shatter mortal armies. But they were not invincible. He catalogued their weaknesses: the slight delay in armor response during extreme maneuvers, the predictable firing patterns of their bolters, the tendency to rely on frontal assault rather than deception. Information filed away for future use. By the 7th hour, the loyalist lines were collapsing. Not from lack of courage, but simple mathematics. 3 legions against fragments of 4, with no hope of reinforcement or resupply. Garrow's Death Guard were down to 300 warriors, surrounded on all sides. Loken's Lunar Wolves had been forced into the deepest bunkers beneath the Coral City, fighting a delaying action that everyone knew was futile. Then something changed. The warp roiled. Every psyker on the vengeful spirit collapsed simultaneously, bleeding from eyes and ears. Doom's mystical senses screamed warning. His armor's wards flaring as reality itself bent around a point above the planet's surface. A rift tore open in the void, not the gentle transition of warp travel, but a violent wound in space-time. Through it came a ship. Not just any ship. The Eisenstein, a frigate bearing the colors of the Death Guard Legion, its hull scorched and battered, streaming atmosphere from a dozen breaches. It had translated from the warp at suicidal proximity to Isstvan III, its engines burning at redline, broadcasting on every frequency. Treachery! The voice that echoed through the vengeful spirit's Vox network was ragged, desperate. "Brothers of the Imperium, hear me. Horus has turned traitor. He bombs his own warriors. The Warmaster has fallen to—" The transmission cut off as the vengeful spirit's lance batteries opened fire. Coherent light carved through the void, burning through the Eisenstein's shields in seconds. But the frigate had already launched a cluster of escape pods, scattering them across the system, broadcasting the same message again and again. "Horus has betrayed us. Warn Terra." The Warmaster is lost to chaos. Horus stood perfectly still, his face a mask of forced calm. But Doom saw the tremor in his hands, the way his jaw clenched so hard it should have shattered teeth. "It seems," the Warmaster said quietly, "that Captain Garrow is more resourceful than I gave him credit for. He must have hidden that ship, waited until we were committed to the surface assault." He turned to his command staff. "Destroy those pods, every single one. Nothing escapes this system." But even as the fleet's guns swiveled to target the fleeing pods, 3 of them vanished, translating back into the warp with the desperate, ragged signature of emergency jumps. The remaining pods were incinerated in seconds, but the damage was done. "They will reach Terra." Abaddon's voice crackled over the vox, transmitted from the surface. "The Emperor will know of the betrayal before we are ready." "Then we accelerate the timetable," Horus said, and his voice carried the weight of inevitability. "Mortarion, Fulgrim, Angron, all of them must commit now. No more preparation, no more careful positioning. We march on Terra immediately, or we lose before the war truly begins." Doom processed the strategic implications. The escape had changed everything. What was supposed to be a carefully orchestrated rebellion, with Horus's forces positioned across the galaxy before the Emperor could respond, had just become a desperate race. The Warmaster would have to consolidate his forces, gather his allies, and push toward Terra before the Imperium could marshal its full strength against him. "The Dark Gods must be pleased," Doom observed quietly. "This chaos serves their purposes perfectly." Horus whirled on him, fury finally breaking through his control. "Do not lecture me about the Dark Gods' purposes, sorcerer. I know what they want. I have always known." He stepped closer, towering over Doom, and for the first time the Warmaster's true nature was visible. Not the noble leader or wounded son, but something darker, something that had been touched by powers beyond human comprehension and was slowly being consumed from within. "You think you understand what I have sacrificed," Horus said, his voice dropping to something cold and terrible. "You bargained with demons for your mother's soul and congratulated yourself on your strength. I bargained with gods for the future of humanity, knowing full well the price would be paid in blood and damnation. Do not presume we are the same." "We are not," Doom agreed, meeting those ancient eyes without flinching, "because I never deluded myself that my bargains were anything but transactions with entities who wanted to use me. You convinced yourself you were still in control." For a moment, Doom thought he'd gone too far. Horus's hand moved toward the ornate power maul at his belt. The World Breaker, a weapon that had shattered fortifications and killed Primarchs. One blow would reduce Doom to paste, armor or no armor. But then Horus laughed. It was a broken sound, devoid of genuine humor. "You are either the bravest or most foolish being I have ever met," the Warmaster said, "and I cannot decide which." He turned back to the tactical displays, watching his warriors butcher their brothers on the surface. "Leave me, Lord Doom. I would be alone to contemplate my victories." Doom departed without another word. Magos fell, falling into step beside him as they navigated the vengeful spirit's corridors. The tech priest's mechadendrites twitched nervously, optical sensors scanning for threats. "You antagonize him deliberately," Fell observed. "That is inadvisable. The Warmaster has killed for less." "He needs someone to tell him the truth," Doom replied. "Everyone else either worships him or manipulates him. I offer neither worship nor manipulation, only analysis. It is valuable precisely because it is rare." "Perhaps," Fell said, "but value is meaningless if you are dead." The escape of the Eisenstein has changed the strategic situation fundamentally. The Warmaster will become more ruthless, more willing to embrace the Dark God's gifts. And you, Lord Doom, represent a prize those gods very much want to claim. Your continued independence becomes more tenuous with each passing hour. Doom knew the Magos was right. The careful balance he'd been maintaining, valuable enough to keep alive but independent enough to avoid service, was becoming unsustainable. The escalation of the heresy meant everyone would be forced to choose sides. Neutrality would be seen as treachery by both factions. He needed options, escape routes, contingencies. They arrived at Doom's quarters to find them occupied by 3 warriors in power armor stood in the chamber, their ceramite painted in the sea green and black of the Lunar Wolves, but bearing personal heraldry that spoke of the warrior lodges, the secret societies that had spread through the legions like cancer, preparing the way for Horus's rebellion. The leader removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face with cold, calculating eyes. "Lord Doom," the warrior said, "I am Sergeant Grail Noctua of the 7th Company. We need to have a conversation about your future aboard this vessel." Doom's hand moved instinctively toward the concealed power conduit in his gauntlet, ready to channel mystical energy if needed. "I was under the impression the Warmaster had granted me guest privileges." "The Warmaster is distracted," Noctua replied, "focused on the greater war while threats closer to home go unaddressed. You are warp-touched, sorcerer. You carry power that draws the attention of entities we do not yet fully understand. Some of us believe you should be brought into the lodge, taught our mysteries, bound to our cause properly. And if I refuse, then you become a liability," another warrior said, his hand resting on his bolter. "And we eliminate liabilities for the good of the Warmaster's vision." Doom assessed the situation rapidly. 3 Astartes in full armor, in an enclosed space with Magos Fel as his only backup. The tech priest was augmented, but no warrior. A direct confrontation would be suicide, unless he was willing to show his full capabilities, to reveal exactly how dangerous his magic could be when properly applied. The question was whether revealing that information was worth the temporary safety it might buy. "Before you make what will certainly be a fatal mistake," Doom said carefully, his voice carrying absolute confidence, "consider what it means that I have survived this long in a hostile universe without pledging allegiance to anyone. Consider that the Warmaster himself has granted me autonomy, and consider very carefully whether your Lodge Master, whoever they might be, authorized you to threaten a guest under the Warmaster's protection." Noctua's expression flickered with uncertainty. "We act for the greater good." "You act without authority and endanger delicate political balance," Doom interrupted. "I suggest you leave now, report this conversation to your superiors, and let them decide whether eliminating me is worth the consequences. Because I assure you, Sergeant, if you force me to defend myself, the results will be spectacular enough to draw the Warmaster's personal attention. And I suspect he will not be pleased that his warriors threatened his guest during a critical strategic moment." The 3 Astartes exchanged glances. Finally, Noctua nodded slowly. "This is not over, sorcerer. The Lodge will discuss your fate properly. But know this, neutrality is an illusion. Eventually you will choose a side, or a side will be chosen for you." They departed, leaving Doom and Fel alone in the chamber. The Magos released a burst of relieved binary. That was dangerously close. The warrior lodges operate outside normal Legion hierarchy. If they decide you are a threat, the Warmaster's protection may not be sufficient. "Then I need to ensure I remain more valuable alive than dead," Doom said. He moved to the cogitator terminal, accessing the data he'd been compiling. "Magos, your repairs to my armor. How long until they are complete?" 4 hours, assuming no further complications." "Make it 2, Doom commanded. "We may need to leave this ship sooner than anticipated." Magos Fel worked through the night cycle with the fevered intensity of a man who understood the stakes. His mechadendrites moved in precise patterns, welding components salvaged from a dozen different systems into Doom's armor, muttering prayers in binary that were equal parts superstition and genuine engineering expertise. Doom stood motionless in the repair cradle, his mind racing through scenarios and contingencies. The Eisenstein's escape had shattered the careful equilibrium. Within hours, the Imperium would know of Horus's betrayal. Fleets would be repositioned, loyalist legions would converge, and everyone aboard the vengeful spirit would be forced to commit absolutely to the Warmaster's cause or be purged as potential traitors. Doom's position, already precarious, was becoming untenable. "The power core is stabilized," Fel announced, his human eye gleaming with satisfaction behind the mass of augmetics. 92% functionality restored. Your armor will not fail you in the immediate future, though I still recommend a full overhaul when circumstances permit. "Circumstances permitting," Doom said dryly, stepping out of the repair cradle and testing his armor systems. The HUD sprang to life with crisp clarity, power distribution optimal, mystical wards humming at full strength. For the first time since his arrival in this universe, he felt capable, dangerous. "Magos, I require information. The ship's internal layout, specifically routes to the hangar bays and potential escape craft." Fel's optical sensors focused sharply on Doom. "You intend to flee." "I intend to have options," Doom corrected. "The warrior lodges want me dead or controlled. Erebus wants me corrupted. Horus wants me as a pet philosopher. None of these outcomes align with my interests." "Where would you go?" Fel asked. "The Imperium will execute you as a warp spawn the moment they discover you. The traitor legions hunt together now. There is no neutral ground." "Then I create neutral ground," Doom said. "This galaxy is vast. Somewhere in it exists space I can claim, resources I can exploit, knowledge I can acquire. I am Victor von Doom. I have built empires from less." The Magos was silent for a long moment, calculations running behind his augmetic eye. "There is a possibility," he said carefully. "The absolute truth, the Forge ship in orbit. It is scheduled to depart the Isstvan system in 8 hours to resupply at the Forge world Mezoa. If you could reach it before departure, conceal yourself among the cargo. Mezoa is a mechanicum world, technically independent of both Imperium and Warmaster, though political pressure mounts daily to choose sides. Could you secure passage? Perhaps, Fel admitted, but there would be a price. The Absolute Truth's shipmaster, Fabricator Locum Urtok Ein, is my mentor. He values knowledge above loyalty. If you could offer him something valuable enough, some technological insight or mystical technique, he might overlook your presence. What does he desire? Understanding, Fel said. The Mechanicum has worshipped technology for millennia without truly comprehending it. We follow rituals passed down from the Dark Age, perform maintenance prayers that are actually diagnostic protocols we no longer understand. You claim to unify science and sorcery. Prove it. Give him knowledge that will revolutionize his understanding of the machine. Doom considered it was risky, exposing his technological secrets to an organization that might use them against him. But remaining aboard the vengeful spirit was demonstrably more dangerous. Arrange a meeting, Doom commanded. I will convince your Fabricator Locum personally. Fel's mechadendrites twitched uncertainly. This will require discretion. If the warrior lodges discover your intention to flee, they will act immediately. And if the Warmaster interprets this as betrayal... Horus gave me autonomy, Doom said. I am exercising it. He cannot fault me for prioritizing my survival when he himself has made survival his paramount concern. You truly believe the Warmaster will see it that way? No, Doom admitted. But by the time he discovers my absence, I will be beyond his immediate reach. That is all I require. 2 hours later, Doom and Fell took a maintenance shuttle across the void to the absolute truth. The Forge ship was a monstrosity of Baroque engineering. 5 kilometers of cathedral-like superstructure fused with industrial forges and weapon batteries. Every surface covered in high Gothic scripture praising the Omnicia. Manufactorums churned endlessly, producing ammunition, armor components, and vehicle parts for the traitor legions. The air tasted of incense and machine oil, and the constant clang of industry provided a thunderous hymn. Fabricator Locum Urtok. Hein received them in a sanctum deep within the ship's core. He was more machine than man, his original body long since replaced with augmetics of breathtaking complexity. 8 mechadendrites emerged from his back like steel serpents, each terminating in different tools. His face was a silver mask carved into the image of the Omnicia's machine skull. Only his eyes, one human, one augmetic, remaining to show what he had once been. Magos Fell speaks highly of you. Hain's voice emerged from a dozen vox emitters, harmonizing in unsettling chorus. A dimensional traveler, a sorcerer scientist, one who claims to understand what we have worshipped in ignorance. He leaned forward, mechadendrites clicking. Prove it. Show me knowledge that justifies the risk of harboring you. Doom extended his gauntlet, activating the hololithic projector built into his armor. Above his palm appeared a 3-dimensional schematic, not of his armor, but of its fundamental operating principle, the fusion of technological circuitry with mystical conduits, energy flowing through both channels simultaneously, each reinforcing the other. Your mechanicum treats technology and the warp as separate entities, Doom said, sacred machines that must be protected from spiritual corruption. But this is a false dichotomy. In truth, all technology interfaces with reality at the quantum level, and the quantum level is where the immaterial bleeds into the material. The warp is not separate from physical law. It is the underlying chaos from which physical law emerges. Hain's optical sensors focused with laser intensity. You speak heresy. The Omnicia teaches that. The Omnicia teaches ritual without understanding, Doom interrupted. You perform the rite of activation to awaken machine spirits. Yes? You burn incense, chant binary prayers, make the sign of the cog. But do you know why these actions work? Because the Omnicia blesses. Because you are performing minor psychic rituals, Doom said flatly. Your incense contains trace psychoactive compounds. Your binary prayers create harmonic frequencies that resonate with the warp. Your gestures channel minute amounts of psychic energy that wake the semi-sentient cogitators you call machine spirits. You are sorcerers who have convinced yourselves you are engineers. The sanctum fell absolutely silent. Even the omnipresent clang of the manufactorums seemed to diminish. Prove it, Hein demanded. Doom gestured to a nearby servitor, a lobotomized human fused with machinery, performing menial calculations. This servitor has malfunctioned. Its biological components conflict with its mechanical augmentations. By your protocols, you would perform the rite of repair, 6 hours of prayer, ritual disassembly, replacement of components according to sacred patterns. Correct, Hein confirmed. Watch, Doom said. He approached the servitor and placed his hand on its metal skull. Drawing on his mystical training, he channeled a pulse of carefully modulated energy, not raw power, but precise frequencies that resonated with both the biological and mechanical components. The servitor jerked once, then stilled. Its optical sensors refocused, and it returned to its calculations with perfect efficiency. 20 seconds, Doom said. No disassembly required, because I understand that the machine spirit is the interface between biological consciousness and mechanical function, a psychic bridge that can be repaired directly if you know how. Haynes stood frozen, processing implications that shattered 10,000 years of religious dogma. His mechadendrites writhed like agitated snakes. "This is," he began, then stopped, started again. "If what you say is true, then everything we have built, the entire cult mechanicus, is founded on misunderstanding our own tools." "Not misunderstanding," Doom corrected. "Incomplete understanding. Your ancestors from the Dark Age knew these principles. They built standard template constructs that unified science and mysticism seamlessly. But when human civilization collapsed, the knowledge was lost. What remained were rituals that worked without anyone remembering why. And you can restore this knowledge." "I can teach you principles," Doom said, "give you frameworks for understanding, but full restoration would require years of study, resources I do not currently possess, and stability this war will not provide." He deactivated the hololithic display. "However, Fabricator Locum, I can offer you something immediately valuable, safe passage to Mezoa, and in exchange I will teach you enough to begin your own research. Knowledge that will elevate you above your peers in the Mechanicum, that will make you invaluable to whichever faction ultimately prevails in this civil war." Haynes' remaining human eye studied Doom with uncomfortable intensity. "You offer much. What guarantee do I have that your knowledge is genuine and not simply elaborate deception?" "You have the evidence of your own sensors," Doom replied. "Scan that servitor. Analyze what I did. Your augmetics are sophisticated enough to detect the energy patterns I used. Reverse engineer them if you can, or accept that I possess knowledge your civilization has lost." The Fabricator Locum was silent for precisely 37 seconds, Doom counted, while his internal systems analyzed the data. Finally, he nodded, a gesture that seemed almost human despite his mechanical nature. "Very well, I will grant you passage to Mezoa. But understand, Lord Doom, if you betray my trust, if your knowledge proves false or harmful, there is nowhere in this galaxy you can hide from the Mechanicum's wraths. We remember grudges for millennia." "I would expect nothing less," Doom said. They formalized the arrangement quickly. Doom would remain hidden in the Absolute Truth's cargo holds until after departure from Isstvan, then be given limited quarters where he would begin Hein's education in unified theory. It was not ideal, but it was survival. As Doom and Fel prepared to return to the Vengeful Spirit to collect what few possessions Doom had accumulated, an alarm shrieked through the forged ship. Red emergency lighting bathed the corridors, and Hein's voice boomed from every voxcaster. "Hull breach, Sector 7 Gamma. All personnel to emergency stations. Boarders detected." Doom and Fel rushed toward a viewport, and what they saw sent ice through Doom's veins. The Vengeful Spirit was moving, not away, toward them. And its lance batteries were charging, targeting solutions locking onto the Absolute Truth. "He knows," Fel said, his voice carrying binary panic. "The Warmaster knows you planned to flee. He's come to stop you personally." Through the viewport, Doom could see boarding torpedoes launching from the Vengeful Spirit, dozens of them, carrying Astartes who would tear through the forged ship like wolves through sheep. And leading them, his armor unmistakable even at this distance, was Horus himself. The Warmaster had come for his wayward guest, and Dr. Doom had nowhere left to run. The boarding torpedoes struck the Absolute Truth like the fists of angry gods. Each impact sent shudders through the forged ship's superstructure, penetrating hull plating designed to withstand void combat, delivering their cargo of transhuman killers directly into the ship's interior. Alarms screamed. Tech priests scrambled to seal bulkheads. Servitors moved with mechanical precision to defensive positions that would prove utterly inadequate against Astartes. Doom's mind raced through options, discarding each as quickly as it formed. Fighting was suicide. Even with his armor restored, he couldn't stand against Horus and his warriors. Hiding was futile in a ship whose every corridor was monitored by augur arrays. Surrender meant accepting whatever fate the Warmaster had decided for him. That left one option: negotiation from a position of manufactured strength. Fabricator Locum, Doom activated the Vox network, his voice cutting through the chaos. Where is your most defensible position? Somewhere with strategic value that even the Warmaster would hesitate to destroy? Haynes' harmonized voice responded immediately. The primary reactor chamber. Destroying it would cripple the absolute truth and potentially trigger a plasma detonation large enough to damage the vengeful spirit if it remains in proximity. But Lord Doom, you cannot seriously intend— Direct me there, now. Fell's mechadendrites writhed in distress. This is madness. You antagonize the Warmaster further by threatening his assets. I demonstrate that killing me carries unacceptable costs, Doom corrected, already moving through the corridors with Fell scrambling to keep pace. Horus is many things, but he is not wasteful. He will negotiate if negotiation serves his interests better than violence. They navigated through passages that grew progressively hotter, the thrum of the ship's plasma reactor growing from background hum to bone-shaking vibration. Emergency bulkheads sealed behind them. Whether on Haynes' orders or automatic protocol, Doom neither knew nor cared. What mattered was reaching the reactor before Horus's warriors caught him. The reactor chamber was a cathedral to barely controlled fury. A miniature star burned at its center, contained within electromagnetic fields and blessed adamantium, feeding power to the Forge ship's countless systems. Coolant pipes thick as tree trunks snaked across every surface. Control panels covered in high Gothic script monitored temperatures that could vaporize cities. A dozen tech priests tended the reactor with religious devotion, their rituals maintaining the delicate balance between useful energy and catastrophic detonation. Doom strode to the primary control console, his armor sensors analyzing the reactor's configurations. Primitive by his standards, but functional. And more importantly, vulnerable. Magos Fell, Doom commanded. Interface with the reactor controls. I need override authority. That is heresy of the highest. Do it. Or watch your mentor's ship be torn apart by warriors who care nothing for your omnissiah. Fell hesitated for 3 seconds, an eternity in the current crisis, then extended a mechadendrite to the console's data port. Binary flowed between tech priest and machine, a conversation conducted at speeds human consciousness couldn't follow. Gradually, reluctantly, the reactor systems acknowledged Doom's authority. This is wrong, Fell said, but his augmetic hands were already moving, granting Doom access. If you destabilize the reactor— I won't, Doom replied, studying the plasma containment fields with the eye of someone who had built arc reactors and harnessed cosmic energies. But the Warmaster doesn't need to know that. He only needs to believe I am desperate and capable enough to threaten mutual destruction. The chamber's main entrance exploded inward. Shaped charges tore through adamantium, and through the smoke came Astartes in sea-green armor. Luna wolves moving with predatory grace, bolters raised and searching for targets. They swept the chamber in seconds, securing positions with practiced efficiency. Then Horus entered. The Warmaster had to duck to pass through the entrance, his armor so massive it scraped the reinforced door frame. In the reactor chamber's hellish light, he looked like something from ancient myth, a god of war made manifest, beautiful and terrible. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with fury, barely held in check. "Victor Von Doom," Horus's voice cut through the reactor's roar. "Step away from the console. This display is beneath you." "Is it?" Doom replied, his hand hovering over the plasma containment controls. "I am doing precisely what you taught me, Warmaster, prioritizing survival over honor, making hard choices in service of ultimate goals. Should I not learn from the Master?" Horus's jaw tightened. "You were granted sanctuary, freedom to operate within my fleet. And you repay this generosity by plotting to flee to a mechanicum world that may yet declare for the Loyalists." "You granted me autonomy," Doom corrected, "the right to pursue my own interests. That autonomy becomes meaningless if exercising it is treated as betrayal. Either I am free to leave or I am a prisoner. Which is it, Warmaster?" "You are too valuable to be allowed to leave," Horus said bluntly. "The Dark Gods want you. My enemies would use you against me, and you possess knowledge that could turn the tide of this war. I cannot permit such a resource to escape my control." "Then you make me a slave," Doom said. "And Dr. Doom serves no master, not even one who claims to fight against tyranny." "Choose your next words carefully, sorcerer." Abaddon stepped forward, his massive Terminator armor bristling with weapons. "You hold no leverage here. Threaten the reactor, and we will cut you down before you can execute the command. Surrender now, and the Warmaster may yet show mercy." "Mercy?" Doom laughed, cold and bitter. "Is that what you showed the billions on Isstvan 3, the brothers you butchered in the Coral City? Forgive me if I find Traitor Mercy to be somewhat lacking in appeal." Several Lunar Wolves raised their bolters. The tech priests attending the reactor fled to the chamber's edges, leaving only Doom, Fel, and the Astartes in the reactor's scorching light. Horus raised a hand, halting his warriors. "Stand down. Lord Doom speaks from fear, not malice. He is alone in a hostile universe, surrounded by powers that want to use him. I understand that fear. I have felt it myself." The admission was unexpected, genuine. Horus's expression softened fractionally as he approached, each step deliberate, non-threatening. "You think I don't know what it feels like to be a prize claimed by gods?" Horus continued. "To have entities beyond comprehension whisper promises while tightening their grip around your soul. I live that nightmare every day, Lord Doom. The difference between us is that I accepted my fate. You still fight yours." "And you call that wisdom?" Doom demanded. "Accepting slavery because resistance seems futile?" "I call it pragmatism," Horus replied. "Fighting the Chaos Gods is like fighting gravity. You can struggle, but ultimately you will fall. Better to guide your descent than to smash blindly into the ground." "Or," Doom said, "you could refuse to jump at all. That option ended the moment you drew on the warp's power to escape your universe," Horus said. "You touched chaos, Lord Doom. You may not have realized it, but the moment you channeled that energy, you became visible to them. There is no escaping their attention now, no fence you can sit upon. You will serve someone in this war, Chaos, the Imperium, or me. Those are your only choices." Doom's hand remained over the reactor controls, but doubt gnawed at him. Horus wasn't threatening or manipulating. He was explaining reality. And the worst part was, he might be right. The warp had felt wrong when Doom used it, hungry and aware. If the Chaos Gods truly had marked him. "I have a fourth option," Doom said quietly. "I can study the warp, learn its principles, find a way to draw on its power without surrendering to its gods. Your Imperium calls this heresy. The Mechanicum calls it tech heresy. But I call it science, understanding phenomena through observation and experimentation." "Others have tried," Horus said. "Magnus the Red, my brother, spent centuries studying the warp. He became the greatest sorcerer in human history. And where did it lead him? Damnation. His legion corrupted, his homeworld burned. The road you propose ends in the same place, just with more suffering along the way. Then I will prove the exception, Doom replied. I have bargained with demons before and emerged with my soul intact. I can do so again. Horus studied him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried genuine curiosity. Why? Why is your independence worth this struggle? What drives you to reject all offers of alliance, to stand alone against powers that could elevate you beyond mortal limitation? Because, Doom said, and his voice carried absolute conviction, I am Victor von Doom. I bow to no one, not gods, not emperors, not well-meaning tyrants who dress their chains in promises of protection. My sovereignty is absolute, or it is nothing. The Warmaster's expression shifted, not to anger, but to something approaching respect. You remind me of someone, he said softly. My father, before he became the Emperor, when he was simply a man who refused to accept that humanity's fate was written by elder races and uncaring gods. He had your same arrogance, your same certainty that will alone could reshape reality. And he built an empire, Doom pointed out. And he destroyed it through his arrogance, Horus countered. His certainty that he knew best, that he alone could guide humanity, created the very rebellion I now lead. Your path leads to the same destination, sorcerer. Isolation, betrayal, ruin. I offer you an alternative. Join me willingly. Not as slave, but as counselor. Help me win this war. Help me build something better than my father's failed imperium. And when the dust settles, I will grant you a domain of your own, a sector, a forge world, whatever resource you need to pursue your studies. It was a good offer, generous even. Horus was offering what Doom had always wanted: power, resources, the freedom to pursue knowledge without interference. But it came with the price of service, and Dr. Doom served no one. I cannot, Doom said. Horus's face hardened. Cannot, or will not. Both, Doom replied. I cannot serve because my nature forbids it. I am incapable of accepting subordination, even to those I respect. It is my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. And I will not serve because the moment I do, I become your creature. Useful today, expendable tomorrow when the Chaos Gods demand you surrender me to prove your devotion. That would not. It would, Doom interrupted. You know it would. The Dark Gods will test you, Warmaster, again and again. They will demand proof of loyalty through sacrifice, and when they ask for me, you will have no choice but to comply. Better I remain independent now than pledge allegiance that will inevitably be broken. Silence filled the reactor chamber, broken only by the plasma's roar. Horus stood perfectly still, a statue carved from transhuman perfection, wrestling with the decision that would define both their fates. Finally, he spoke. You are right, Horus said, and the admission seemed to cost him something. The Dark Gods will demand you eventually, and I... He trailed off, then continued more quietly. I am no longer certain I could refuse them. Not for you, not for anyone. He turned away, facing his lunar wolves. Stand down, we withdraw. Abaddon's head snapped toward his Primarch. Warmaster, you cannot simply... I can and do, Horus said firmly. Lord Doom has earned his freedom through honest defiance. And perhaps, he glanced back at Doom, perhaps the galaxy needs a few beings who refuse to bow, if only to prove it remains possible. The Warmaster strode toward the exit, his lunar wolves falling in behind him with visible confusion. At the threshold, he paused. Go to Mezoa, sorcerer. Study your theories. Pursue your impossible dream of mastering the warp without surrendering to it. But know this, we will meet again. In this war or the next, our paths will cross. And when they do, I pray you have found what you seek, because the alternative is damnation for us both." Then Horus Heresy, Warmaster of Chaos, left Dr. Doom to his fate. The absolute truth departed the Isstvan system 6 hours later, its holds full of war material and its hidden cargo more valuable than any weapon. Doom stood in the observation gallery fabricator Locum Hain had provided, watching Isstvan 3 recede. A dead world now, a monument to the moment when brother turned against brother, and the Imperium's dream became its nightmare. 12 billion dead, 30,000 Astartes butchered in fratricidal slaughter, and one-dimensional traveler who had somehow survived by refusing every hand extended to help or harm him. "The Warmaster let you go," Hain's voice emerged from a Vox grill, the fabricator Locum having joined him in the observation chamber. His mechanical form reflected in the viewport surface, a ghost made of chrome and purpose. "I confess I did not anticipate that outcome. My calculations suggested a 73% probability of your termination." "Horus is more human than he pretends," Doom replied. "He still remembers what it means to respect an adversary. The Chaos Gods are eroding that humanity, but it is not yet completely gone. That moment of recognition, of seeing himself in my refusal to serve, saved my life." "For now," Hain said, "but the Warmaster is correct about one thing. You cannot remain neutral indefinitely. This war will consume the entire galaxy. Every world, every faction, every individual will be forced to choose a side or be destroyed by both." "Then I will choose a third side." "Oh," Doom said, "my own." Ambitious, Hain's optical sensors glowed with what might have been amusement. "And suicidal, but I confess, your theories intrigue me. If you can truly unify technological and mystical principles, if you can teach me to see the machine spirit not as divine mystery, but as comprehensible phenomena." His mechadendrites writhed with anticipation. "That knowledge alone would be worth the risk of harboring you." "It will take time," Doom warned. "Months, perhaps years, and it will require challenging 10,000 years of mechanicum dogma. Are you prepared for that?" "I am a scientist who has been forced to pretend at priesthood for a century," Hain replied. "The opportunity to pursue genuine understanding rather than ritual memorization is worth any heresy." They spoke for hours as the absolute truth navigated through the warp toward Mezoa. Hain asked questions with the hunger of a mind too long constrained by religious doctrine, and Doom answered with the precision of someone who understood that knowledge was the only currency that mattered now. He explained the principles of mystical energy channeling, the way consciousness interfaced with quantum mechanics, the reason prayer and ritual worked when performed by those who truly believed. "The Imperium calls it faith," Doom said. "The Mechanicum calls it the Omnisia's blessing. The Chaos worshippers call it the God's favor. But it is all the same thing, psychic energy channeled through belief structures into physical effects. The warp does not care what you call it or what theological framework you use to understand it. It responds to will, intention, and emotional resonance." "Then the Emperor himself," Hain trailed off, processing implications. "He is not divine. He is simply the most powerful psyker who ever lived, and humanity's collective belief in his divinity amplifies his power through a feedback loop." "Precisely," Doom confirmed. "And the Chaos Gods are the same, humanity's fears, rages, ambitions, and lusts given form and consciousness through 10,000 years of psychic emission into the warp. They are powerful, yes, perhaps even unkillable, but they are not truly gods. They are phenomena, and phenomena can be understood, predicted, eventually controlled." "Heresy," Hain said, but there was wonder in his mechanical voice. "Beautiful, rational heresy." The journey to Mezoa took 3 weeks of subjective time. Time flowed strangely in the warp, and the Absolute Truth's navigator reported unusual turbulence, as if something vast moved through the immaterial realm alongside them. Doom spent the journey learning everything he could about this universe. The Mechanicum's archives contained millennia of accumulated data, stellar cartography, xenobiology, historical records, and technological specifications for everything from laser guns to planet-killing weapons. He learned of the Emperor's Great Crusade, 2 centuries of expansion that had reunited humanity across the stars through diplomacy where possible and overwhelming force where necessary. He learned of the Primarchs, 20 transhuman generals, each a masterwork of genetic engineering, scattered across the galaxy as infants and raised on alien worlds. Horus had been the first found, the favored son. His betrayal was patricide on a galactic scale. He learned of xenospecies that made humanity's claims of supremacy seem laughable. The Eldar, ancient and dying, who had once ruled the galaxy. The Orcs, fungal warriors who existed only to fight. The Necrons, undying machines older than human civilization. The Tyranids, extragalactic horrors that consumed entire worlds. And he learned of the warp itself, the Immaterium, the Sea of Souls, the realm where physics surrendered to consciousness and reality became negotiable. It was simultaneously the Imperium's greatest asset, allowing faster-than-light travel, and its greatest vulnerability, leaking corruption into the material universe through every psychic breach. Doom absorbed it all with the focus of a man who understood that knowledge was survival. Mezoa, when they finally translated from the warp above it, was a monument to industrial might that would have impressed even Latveria's factories. The entire world was a forge, continents covered in manufactorums, the atmosphere thick with industrial emissions, orbital stations churning out war material in quantities that boggled the mind. It was a society that had sacrificed every aesthetic consideration to pure production, and there was something grimly admirable about that commitment. Mezoa has not yet declared for Horus or the Emperor, Hain explained as they descended toward the primary forge complex. The fabricator general here, Kelbor Hal, is pragmatic. He awaits evidence of who will win before committing his considerable resources. This makes the world both sanctuary and battleground. Every faction sends agents to court his favor. Then I am one more player in an already crowded game, Doom observed. You are the only player who wants neither side to win, Hain corrected. That makes you either irrelevant or uniquely valuable. Time will tell which. The Absolute Truth docked at Forge Complex Sigma 9, a structure the size of a city that existed solely to manufacture plasma weapons. Doom disembarked with minimal ceremony, his repaired armor drawing curious stares from tech priests who had never seen its design before. They whispered in binary, recognition that this was something other, something that did not fit their understanding of what technology should be. Haynes secured Doom quarters in the complex's deepest levels, chambers that had once housed Imagos who had been executed for tech heresy 3 centuries prior. The irony was not lost on Doom as he surveyed the space, Spartan but functional, with access to a cogitator terminal and enough room to conduct experiments. "What will you do now?" Hain asked. "You have achieved temporary sanctuary, but sanctuary is not purpose. What does Victor von Doom do when he cannot return home and refuses to serve any faction in this universe?" Doom moved to the terminal, his fingers dancing across controls as he accessed Mezoa's data archives. "I do what I have always done, Fabricator Locum. I learn, I adapt, I prepare. This universe is vast and hostile, but it is also rich with resources and knowledge that does not exist in my reality. The warp is a treasure trove of mystical energies I have never encountered. The Mechanicum possesses technologies my world never dreamed of. The genetic engineering that created the Primarchs could revolutionize everything I thought I knew about human potential. You would study all of this? I would master all of this, Doom corrected, and when I have sufficient understanding, I will carve out my own domain. Find a world, or several worlds, that I can reshape into something perfect. Build what I built in Latveria, but on a grander scale. An empire of reason in a galaxy gone mad with faith. Haynes' optical sensors dimmed, processing. That is a goal that will take decades, perhaps centuries. Are you prepared for that commitment? I am Victor von Doom, Doom replied, as if that answered everything. And perhaps it did. I have toppled governments, bargained with demons, and stood against gods. This is simply a larger canvas, a more complex equation. But the fundamental principle remains unchanged through intellect, will, and refusal to accept limitation. Anything is achievable. The Chaos Gods will not forget you, Hayne warned. Nor will the Emperor's agents, nor will Horus. You have made yourself known to every major power in this war. They will come for you eventually. Then I will be ready, Doom said confidently. I have 3 weeks to study the warp before the next crisis forces my hand. 3 weeks to understand this universe's rules and how they can be bent. 3 weeks to transform from refugee to player. He turned from the terminal, his scarred face set with absolute determination. The Horus Heresy will reshape this galaxy. Empires will fall. Gods will ascend. Billions will die. And when the dust settles, the survivors will find that Dr. Doom has become something they can neither ignore nor control. You truly believe you can achieve this, Haynes said. It was not quite a question. I do not believe, Doom replied. I know. Because throughout my life I have learned one fundamental truth. The universe does not grant power to those who ask politely or serve faithfully. It grants power to those who take it. To those who refuse every limitation, who see every obstacle as a puzzle to be solved rather than a wall to stop them. He activated his armor's mystical wards, feeling the warp's energy swirl around him, chaotic, hungry, powerful, but not uncontrollable. Nothing was uncontrollable if you understood its principles. The Emperor tried to build a rational imperium and failed because he refused to acknowledge the warp's influence. Horus embraced the warp but surrendered his will to its gods. Both made the same mistake, treating the immaterial and material as separate realms, requiring separate approaches. But they are not separate. They are different frequencies of the same reality, and I will be the first to truly unify them. Outside the Forge complex, sirens began to wail. Emergency Vox channels crackled with panic. Haynes' mechadendrites twitched as he accessed the Forge's communication network. Word has arrived from Terra, the fabricator locum said, his voice tight with tension. The Emperor has learned of Horus's betrayal. He recalls 7 legions to defend the throne world. Kelbor Hal must now decide, support the Emperor's call or declare for the Warmaster. Mezoa's neutrality has ended. Then so has my sanctuary, Doom observed. War comes whether I wish it or not. What will you do? Doom smiled behind his mask, a cold, calculating expression that would have chilled even Anastartes. What I always do, Fabricator Locum. I will survive. I will learn. And I will ensure that when this war ends, Victor von Doom stands among the victors, not as anyone's servant, but as a power in his own right. The warp swirled, the galaxy burned, and one man who refused to bow to gods or emperors prepared to carve his legend into a universe that had never seen his like before. The game was far from over. It had only just begun. The Horus Heresy would rage for 7 more years, consuming the Imperium in the greatest civil war humanity had ever known. Brother fought brother across 1,000,000 worlds. Primarchs fell to blade and betrayal. The Emperor himself would be wounded unto death. Bound to a golden throne for 10,000 years of undying agony. And when it finally ended, neither side could claim true victory, only survival purchased at apocalyptic cost. But in the shadows of that war, Dr. Victor von Doom pursued his own path. On Mezoa, he studied the Mechanicum's deepest secrets, trading knowledge for access to archives 10,000 years old. He learned to navigate the warp not as psyker or demon servant, but as scientist-sorcerer who understood that mysticism was simply physics operating on principles beyond conventional measurement. He built alliances with tech priests who valued understanding over dogma, creating a network that transcended the Imperium-traitor divide. When Horus finally reached Terra and laid siege to the Imperial Palace, Doom was not among the attackers or defenders. He had claimed a forge moon in a forgotten system, building the foundation of what would eventually become his domain, a place where technology and sorcery unified, where human potential could be explored without the Imperium's crushing dogma or Chaos's corrupting touch. The Chaos gods still whispered his name, still offered power beyond imagining. The Imperium's agents searched for the dimensional anomaly that had appeared during the heresy, and Horus, in his final moments before confronting his father, thought briefly of the Sorcerer King who had refused every offer of alliance and somehow survived where demigods fell. But Dr. Doom thought of none of them. He thought only of the empire he would build, the knowledge he would master, and the day when this galaxy would learn what Victor von Doom had always known, that true power bowed to no one, not even gods. The 31st millennium had witnessed the fall of the greatest rebellion in human history, but it had also witnessed the arrival of something new, something that did not fit neatly into Imperium or Chaos, human or Xenos, servant or master. It had witnessed the arrival of Doom, and the galaxy would never be the same. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and let us know which What If crossover you want to see next. Until then, may dooms will be done.